on here. 1, 2, 3. We are live. Are we live over here? Yes, we are good. Are we good over here? We are good. We good over here? I think so. We good over here. All right, here we go. Hope everyone's having a good morning. We started a little bit. My mic in. Started a little bit later than usual. Is our mic on? All right, mic is on over here. Is our mic on over here? Facebook mic should be on. Let me make sure our mic is on properly over here on LinkedIn. Yes, we good over here on TikTok. Good morning. We good over here on Instagram. My mic is on. All right, so we started a little bit later than usual, but we are still here and in business as usual. Hope everybody is having a great day. The topic here today is how to get more life out of life. So I call this More Life. So you might be thinking about the Drake album from a few years ago. And you can think about that. I'm going to tell you how to get more life out of your life, regardless of what you do, whether you're a rapper, actor, pastor, entrepreneur, student, athlete, or anywhere in between. How can you get more life out of your life? First of all, let's get a definition of the word life. I think all of you have a general idea of what it means, but let's just pull from the dictionary, because those of you who are not familiar with my work, I like to make sure we're all on the same page whenever I talk about a topic. So I will pull definitions out of dictionaries so that we all understand what I mean when I'm using certain phrases or words, so that there is no confusion. Because these days people like to confuse you by changing up the meanings of words so they can make it fit their story, whatever they want to tell. I like to defer to the dictionary, because the dictionary defines what words actually mean. So definition of life is a condition that distinguishes animals and plants from inorganic matter, including the capacity for growth, reproduction, functional activity, and continual change preceding death, period, close quote. That is what life means, okay? The condition that distinguishes animals and plants from inorganic matter. So if you have life, that means you can grow, reproduce, you can do functional activity, and you continually are changing before you die. So if you're a regular listener to my work, or even if you are brand new, I like to give the definitions, like I said, because again, people like to change around definitions, especially these days, to fit whatever story that they want to tell. And ridiculously, people are accepting of this nonsense, but we don't do any nonsense over here. No shenanigans over here. So now that you understand the definition, today let's talk about how to get more life out of your life. I'm going to tell you 3 specific things that any of you can do starting right now where you are to get more life out of your life. Number 1, most importantly, actually, before I get into that, let me introduce myself. For those who don't know me, I forgot. My name is Dre Baldwin. Many know me as Dre all day. I'm a former 9-year pro athlete, author of 35 books on 4 TEDx talks, created this brand called Work on Your Game. What we do here, we extract the tools to help athletes reach the top of the sports world. We translate them over to the business world. Our whole purpose here is threefold: high-level performance done consistently to produce results. That's the game we're in. We're in a performance-based business, and we want to codify that performance so that you do it consistently, and we're in a results-based business. Performance and results. If you remember only 2 things about what I'm about, that's what I'm about. And we do that over at workonyourgameuniversity.com, which is the link in the bio to wherever you are watching me. If you want to take the next step, when you're ready to take the next step. Everybody needs to take the next step, but when you're ready to, and I would suggest if you listen to what I say here today, that should be sooner rather than later. So point number 1, how to get more life out of your life is you must change your default settings. When you use your phone, they have settings. All of you want to have a smartphone who are listening to me right now, you know how you have the settings on your phone. You can change the settings, and any app that you use, there are settings that you can have. If you're on a computer, there are settings. And when you have even cars these days, there are settings that you can set. So any of you who has a car that's come out in the last, 5 years, then you know that you can change the setting for the seats. All right. So if you have a car that more than one person drives it, you can push button 1 and it adjusts the seat to how you drive. And then you push button 2 and they can adjust the seat to how maybe one of your kids or your spouse drives in their position. Maybe they're taller than you or shorter than you, so the seat adjusts. But those are settings. All right, you can set the settings. What I'm telling you to do here to get more life out of your life is you must adjust your default settings. And there are 2 specific default settings that I want you to pay attention to. Now, let me tell you the specific settings that I'm talking about. Most people's default settings are set to slow and later. Most people's default settings are set to slow and later. What does that mean? It means most people, and probably most of you who are listening to this, when you decide to do something, you do it slowly and you do it later. I'm telling you to change the setting to doing it fast and doing it now. That's the number one change you can make, is change your default setting from, instead of doing things slowly, do it fast. And instead of doing things later, do it now. Now, why does this matter? Why is this something that matters so much for having more life? Why does this matter for getting more life out of your life? Well, let me ask you a couple questions. I'm going to answer your question with a question. How many times have you heard something, read something, thought something, identified something that you wanted or needed to do, and then told yourself, okay, I'll do it, but I'm going to do it later? How many times have you done that? All right. Some of you listening to me have told yourself that already today, and it's only 8 o'clock in the morning. You've already told yourself that today. It's something that you know you need to do, and you just made a mental note and said, I will do it later. Now, can you do every single thing that you think of right there in the moment? Not necessarily. You might be driving your car and you might think, well, you know what? I need to pull some chicken out of the freezer to make it for dinner. No, you can't pull the chicken out of the freezer while you're in your car. So technically you can't do every single thing immediately, but I want you to get the general point, get the spirit of my point and the direction of my point, which is instead of putting things off to do them later, which is what all of us do by default, instead start doing things now. Stop telling yourself you will do it later and do it now. Anything that you can do now, do it now. And when you finally do get around to actually doing the thing, do it fast. Do it with some speed and do it with urgency. Here's a good thing about speed and urgency, and also about doing things fast instead of also doing things now instead of doing them later, is that if you just consciously keep this top of mind for a day, you will find that you can move a lot faster than you normally move. Again, your default setting is to do things slow, and slow is relative, by the way. Slow and fast are relative terms, which means what's considered slow to me might be fast for you, and what's considered fast for me might be slow for you. So when I say that you usually do things slow, what I mean is you have the capability of doing it faster than how you do it. So even though your default setting might be faster than everybody around you, that doesn't mean you're going as fast as you possibly can. And fast while still being under control when I say doing things fast. And why does all this matter to get more life out of your life? Well, for one simple reason, because eventually you're going to die. Eventually you will run out of time and you will die. So if you do things slowly, then if you do things slowly as opposed to doing them fast, then you have less time to get things done. So if you got 10 more things you need to do before you die and you do them slowly, you might only get through 6 of them because you're going to run out of time because you're doing things slow. But if you do things fast, you might get through all 10 and still have some time left over. And now you can add some bonus things, 11, 12, 13, and 14. So now you got 8 more things done before you die because you were moving fast, as opposed to only getting 6 things done because you were moving slow. And most of us don't generally think about this stuff on a conscious level on an everyday basis, especially if you're relatively young and relatively healthy. Like my grandmother's like 90 something years old. All right, she's more than twice my age. So I might not think about it because I look at her and I'm like, well, maybe I'll make it that far. I got another 40, 50, 60 years to use up. But we should all be thinking about this on a regular basis, because just because someone else made it to 90 something doesn't mean you're going to make it. Any of you know someone who's died at the age that you are right now? If you don't, just go on Google and say died at age and then put in whatever age you are, and they'll give you a whole list of people who died at the age that you are right now. So there's no guarantee you're going to make it to the next year or the next week or the next month, which means we need to have a sense of urgency about getting as many things under our belts in our lives as we can in the limited amount of time that we have. And all of us have a limited amount of time, because most of us, unless you're planning on taking your own life, we have no idea how much time we got. If you take your own, then at least you know when it's over. Or you said you're going to do it on Wednesday, then you got till Wednesday. But everybody else, we're trying to live as long as we possibly can, but you have no idea how much time you got, which means we need to act with a sense of urgency with the time that we do get, because as they say, the past is history, the future is uncertain, and the present is the gift, right? The present is the gift, because you have no idea if you're going to make it to the next present and the next present and next present. Tomorrow is a gift if you make it. Next week is a gift if you make it. Next year is a gift if you make it. All right, not everybody makes it. So we need to check our own arrogance in believing that just because we've had time up to this point that we're going to continually have time. Because eventually, every human being on the planet, I think we all can agree, eventually we all run out of time. I don't think any of us knows a person who's just lived forever. Any of you know anyone who's like 200 years old? I don't think there are any people. All right. So even if somebody makes it to 100 is like a big deal. All right. Most people don't make it that long. They just announced Dikembe Mutombo, NBA player, who was 58 years old. He passed away just yesterday, 58. Now, I told you my grandma was like 90 something. So she got 30 more years than he got. That's a long time, 30 plus more years than he got. And he was 58. So if you ain't 58, again, think of someone who died when they were 40 or 30 or 20. Happens. So this is why you got to change these default settings. Okay. So how many things do you have on your mental to-do list that you have been planning to get to later, but you haven't actually gotten to them yet? How many of you got things that you had on your list to do yesterday, but you just didn't do it for whatever reason? Maybe you ran out of time. Maybe you had too many other things to do. For whatever reason, you didn't get it done. All right. The point here is you want to eliminate those things by doing them now. And now is the moment when you think about it. So when I say do something now, that means as soon as you have the thought, do it. As soon as the thought occurs to you that you need to do a thing, do the thing. If you can, if it's something that you can do, do it. I would say probably more than half of the stuff that we think of that needs to be done, we could do it usually right there in the moment. Now, there are some things you can't do it in the moment because you are preoccupied doing something else. So as I gave the example earlier, if you're driving your car and you make a note that, hey, I need to send a text message to my cousin, don't pick up your phone and send a text message while you're driving. All right. We know you're not supposed to be doing that. Don't send an email. Don't check your email while you're driving. All right. There are things that you can't do in the moment, but many things we think about doing, we can do something to move ourselves in the right direction. This habit alone can change a whole lot for you in a big way in a very short period of time. And I know a lot of people are looking for those. How can I make big changes very quickly? This habit right here. Doing things now and doing things fast instead of doing things later. The challenge for a lot of you is that it is wired into your subconscious. And you had to be very conscious about changing this habit. You want to change this habit to doing things fast and doing them now. You got to be thinking about it consciously all day. So I just told you the good part. Now, this is the challenging part. Challenging part is for you to change this habit, you had to be thinking about it all day that I need to be doing things faster and I need to do things now. Because if you don't think about it actively, you will do things by your normal setting, which is slow, and doing them later. So you got to keep this top of mind. So top of mind means you're consciously thinking about it. That's what it means. If you don't constantly think about this, this is not going to work. Now, some of you may be thinking I'm going to give you some type of shortcut or hack for this, but there isn't any. All right. This is the work. The work is you have to be constantly thinking about this, and you constantly think about anything often enough, and then you do it a few times. Then eventually, and a few can be, it could be 100 times, it could be 10 times, depending on who you are and how deep your previous programming was. It could take less or more time for you to change, but it becomes a habit once you do it a few times and you've done it successfully. Now, again, if you have a habit of doing things the exact opposite way, you may have to do more work because you have to undo that habit that you have for 25 years and you got to change it to a new habit that you only heard about 2 minutes ago. So you got to do the work. Again, as long as you're willing to do the work, anything is possible. So anything within reason is possible. And remember that your subconscious mind controls 85% of your thoughts, 85% of your behaviors. So if you want to make a big change in your life, it's not a change to the things that you are consciously doing. It's a change to what your subconscious is programmed to do. And the way that you change your subconscious programming is by first getting conscious about what's in there and then consciously making the adjustments. So when you consciously make the adjustments to what's happening in your subconscious by consciously thinking about it, now you have made yourself eligible to alter your habits. Your habits control most of your life. It is not your conscious thinking that controls most of your life. Even though most humans think that their conscious thoughts are making all the decisions, they are not. Your subconscious is making all the decisions based on the programming it has received, either from your conscious mind, from your environment, or from the material that you are consistently taking in, i.e. the TV shows you watch, the music you listen to, the emails that you read, the social media that you take in. All that stuff is programming your subconscious mind. So remember, the subconscious mind gets programmed by emotionalization, repetition, and immersion. Those are the only ways you can program the subconscious. So if you want to change your default settings, you have to use emotionalization, repetition, and immersion. And I'm giving you the repetition. Just keep thinking about anything often enough, you will come to believe it. Doesn't matter what it is, even if it's completely false. You'll believe it if you say it to yourself often enough. Moving on to point number 2. We're talking here today about how to get more life out of your life. Number 2, you must do an ROI assessment. In other words, you're going to do a what do they call it, like an inventory. So any of you ever worked in a retail store? For example, around the corner from where I live, there's a what's the name of that place where they sell the yoga clothes? Lululemon, however you say it. So they have a Lululemon store around the corner, and like maybe a month or two ago, because I wake up early and go to the gym or work out in the morning. So I saw these people who worked there. They were up early. It was like 5 o'clock in the morning, and they were all in the store. And it was clear to me that they were doing either a remodel of the store or they were doing inventory. And then I saw the store later and it still looks the same. So I don't think they were remodeling. Looked like they were doing inventory. So any of you ever worked at a retail store? Like when I worked at, remember I worked at Foot Locker, and they would have an inventory, and you had to come in on a day that you weren't even supposed to be working. And you had to it would usually be early in the morning. And then you had to go in there and you basically had to count everything that was in the store, and they had to take count of it. And then they compared that to what the data set was supposed to be in there. And then the store would know, okay, we're short on these. We're missing 10 pairs of Air Force Ones. We got 10 extra pairs of Timberland boots, whatever. You had to count everything. And they would even make you go and do inventory at a store that you didn't even work at. So if you worked at the store on the east side of town, your manager might say to you, well, they're doing an inventory check on the store on the west side of town, and you got to go and you got to help count, and you can't not go. If you don't go, you get fired. So they would bring people from all these different stores to do inventory for like a whole day. You would get paid for it, but it was on your day off. So who likes doing that? I hate it when they made me do that. I had to do it like maybe once, and I hated doing that. And I said, I'm going to quit this job before the next time they make me do that. And I did. That's exactly what I did. I quit working there before I had to do it again. But anyway, ROI assessment. What I mean here is you're taking inventory of what you're doing and what it's producing for you. ROI stands for return on investment, in case any of you don't know. So what you're going to do here is look at who and what are actually producing results in your life. Actually producing results. Now, results means what you actually want. That's when I say results, that means what you want. So if you don't know what you want, then you can't do this assessment. So what do you actually want? You have to have an answer to that question. Then you got to look at all the stuff you're doing and all the people you're dealing with and ask yourself, what's actually getting me to get these results? And what's not. And then the things that are actually producing results, you got to put your resources, more of your resources towards that stuff, and then less of your resources towards everything else. So this is another version of what we call 80-20 in your life. And those of you familiar with the 80-20 principle, also known as Pareto's principle, states 80% of your results come from 20% of your inputs, which means 20% of the things that you're doing and 20% of the people who you're engaging with on an everyday basis are producing 80% of the results in your life. Your job is not to question whether or not that's true, because it is true. It's a principle, not a theory. Your job then is to figure out what is the 20% that's producing 80% of the results, get a clear answer to that, and then put more of your resources into that 20% and divert resources from the 80%. So if you got friends that you hang with, or family members that you talk to every day that are not helping produce results in your life, the discipline is for you to stop dealing with these people as much as you have been. Doesn't mean you had to cut them off completely. It doesn't mean you got to unfriend them on Facebook. It just means you got to stop spending an hour a day talking to them, because talking to them is not helping you get to your outcomes. Now, I'm going to do a whole stream on this at some point. There are 3 levels of people in life. You got the people who you should spend 2 minutes with, people you should give 2 hours, and people you should give 2 days. And you need to put people in their proper categories. Unfortunately, what happens is many of you are spending 2 days or 2 hours with people who only deserve 2 minutes. And this is the reason why your resources are misallocated, because you're giving resources to things that are not worth it. And you can take people out of the equation and apply this to activities. You could apply it to thinking. You could apply it to anything. 80% of the things that you're doing are not really doing anything for you. Any of you who goes to the gym on a regular basis, 80% of what you're doing in the gym is not really producing much of a result. It's only 20% of the stuff that you do in there that's actually producing the results, whether that's losing weight, whether it's having muscles, whether it's getting you fit and toned in whatever places you want to be fit and toned. 20% of what you do is really helping with that. The other 80% is just busy work that makes you feel good, but is not actually doing anything. Or maybe you're doing it so you can take videos for Instagram. And y'all see it. Y'all know what I'm talking about. So the point is, you got to 80-20 your work. And you can apply this at your work as well. It doesn't matter what kind of work that you do. If you are working in a corporate job, 20% of the stuff you do every day at work is actually producing the results. If you are an entrepreneur, 20% of what you're doing is producing the results. If you are in any form of sales, like an entrepreneur, you're definitely in sales by default. 20% of your customers are producing 80% of the money. So your job is to figure out who are that 20%, and how do I sell more stuff to those people, because they're the ones producing the money anyway. And secondly, how do I find more people like them? And 80%, I mean, you could even get rid of them if you want to. You can keep selling to them, but you shouldn't be giving too much of your time to them. You're in business, 80% of your money is coming from 20% of your customers. If you have a list of your customers and how much money each one of them has spent, most of you should have that. You run a business, especially these days, because most of the platforms will give you the data. You just look it up and you can see. All right, most of our money is coming from these folks. And if you do this, you will notice this in your analysis. I've done 80-20 analysis. I've been in business for a long time. We got thousands of customers. We sold things from $9 books to $1 trials to $50,000 coaching programs. And when you break it down, 20% of our clientele or customers have produced 80% of the money. And it applies in every business. It doesn't matter what you sell, by the way. You could be Walmart, this applies. You can be Amazon, it applies. You can be Bentley or Rolls Royce, this applies. It applies in every single business. So your job is to do the ROI assessment and figure out what is the 20% that's producing 80% of the results. And again, apply this to every aspect of life: relationships, work, exercise, mindset, things you do for fun, anything you want to, entertainment, education, 80-20 rule. All right. And again, 80-20 principle. I'll call it a principle because what you need to understand about rules is rules can be broken. Principles cannot be broken. Everybody catch that? Rules can be broken. Theories can be rejected. Opinions can be argued against. Principles cannot be broken. So I'm telling you, 80-20 is a principle, which means there are no exceptions, which means everything that I'm telling you here, when I'm using myself as an example, it also applies to you. Now, whether you use it or not is a different story, but doesn't mean it doesn't apply. So I remember when I first came up with these notes, I was looking at our own numbers for the year, and our sales transactions have been down. Like, this was 2023. I remember through the first 4 months of the year, our sales transactions, just the number of transactions were down like 79%. 79% fewer transactions through the first 4 months of 2023, but our revenue was up 41%. Now, what exactly does that mean? For those who don't understand those numbers, we are doing fewer transactions, meaning we were dealing with fewer people, but we were dealing with 80% fewer people. We were making 40% more money. What that means is we have been applying the 80-20 principle. In other words, we are only working with a lot fewer people, but we were making more money because the fewer people we were working with were the ones who were spending the most money anyway. Everybody understand? And again, this applies in every business. Everybody catch it. Those of you who are in sales, even if you don't own your own business, if you're a salesperson, 20% of your customers are producing 80% of the money. All right, have I said that enough? All right, point number 3. Topic again here today is how to get more life out of your life. Number 3, you must do a job review of your habits. Those of you who work in companies, if you've been at a company for a few years now, you've probably done a few job reviews or whatever they call it. Yearly review, quarterly review, employee review. I don't know what word they use wherever any of you works, but they all do this, right? So it might be every quarter. It might be every 6 months. It might be every year. Ideally is more often than that. The whole point of it is you sit down with maybe the HR manager or the supervisor or your boss or whatever their title is, and they review what work you've done over the last 3, 6, 12 months. They tell you what they like about it, what you're doing well, what you should do more of, what maybe your areas for improvement, where you are challenged. They ask you some questions. What do you think about your performance? Where do you think we can support you and help you? Hopefully they're asking questions like this. And they talk about what the future looks like for you within the organization, if there is going to be a future for you within the organization. Because if you're a really poor performer, they might be firing you. But assuming you're keeping the job, they tell you what it looks like moving forward, right? That's a job review in a general sense. What I'm suggesting that you do is understand that even if you don't have anybody working for you, on the contrary, you do. Your habits are your staff. Everyone listening to me, I don't care what you do professionally. You might not even have a job right now and you're looking. Your habits are your staff. They are your employees and they work for you. Let me explain to you why I can say this and how I'm so sure it is true. Your habits are, as I told you, your life is driven by your habits. 85% of what we do is subconscious. Habits are subconscious, meaning you do them without thinking about them. So your habits are representing you out into the world, meaning they are working for you. So if your habits are bad, then they are putting a bad representation of you out into the world. If your habits are good, they're putting good representation of you out into the world, and bad and good are relative based on what you want. Therefore, if you want to change any aspect of your life, the most important thing you need to look at is the habit that is underlying that aspect of your life, not the conscious things you're doing, but the habitual things that you're doing. So for example, if you want to get in better physical shape, and you're not in the shape that you want to be in right now, Don't look at what you're constantly thinking right now at this moment. Like, hey, maybe I should go to LA Fitness and get a membership. You need to look at your habits that have led you to not being in shape. Maybe one of those habits is you told yourself you're going to get up early and work out, but you never do it. That's a habit. You got to fix that. Maybe it's that you're watching 3 hours of Netflix a day. That's a habit you have to fix. Maybe it's because you're eating ice cream and potato chips and candy and cake 5 times a week. That's a habit. You have to fix that. So you see how the habits are probably a bigger issue than anything you could constantly think about. If you change these habits, then it'll probably change your outcomes in a relatively short period of time. And it becomes more long-term because the habits, again, are controlling the way you behave. So if you change your habits, your behavior will change without you having to constantly think about it all the time. The challenge is, in order to change a habit, you have to constantly think about it for a certain period of time until it becomes ingrained in your subconscious. So if I wanted to create a new habit, what's something that, let's say there's something that I don't do, but I wanted to make a habit of doing it. Let's say I want to go to the pool and swim every day. I don't do that. Let's say I want to make that habit. I would have to consciously think about it and remind myself to do it for probably, who knows, maybe a month or so of doing that. Then it will become normal that my default thought is that what time am I going to swim tomorrow? Where am I going to swim? What's the weather going to be tomorrow morning when I go up to the pool? Do I got my swim clothes ready so I can go jump in the pool tomorrow morning? It'll become a normal habit to where I only have to constantly think about it. Whereas now I go to the gym every other day and I go outside and I run every other day. That's the habit that I have right now. So the conscious part is in changing the habit. But once the habit is set, you don't have to think about it anymore. It goes on autopilot. So someone like myself, it's on autopilot that I'm going to work out tomorrow morning and the morning after that and the morning after that. I don't have to think about it. I know that I'm going to do it. It's just a matter of what clothes am I going to wear? And I know what time I'm getting up. I know exactly where I'm going to work out. And I know exactly what's going to happen when I get there. So the job review of your habits, folks, means looking at the habits that are producing results in your life and the areas in which you have the outcomes that you want. Figure out what the habits are that are leading to that. And then ask yourself, how can I triple down on these habits so I can keep getting results here? And then the areas in which you don't have what you want, you look at the habits that are underlying that unwanted outcome and figure out which habits need to be deleted, which ones can be updated and fixed, and which ones need to be completely replaced. And also maybe there may be a few that are salvageable. It's kind of like if you have a football team and the football team's terrible, you know you got to make some changes on the team. It doesn't mean you got to get rid of the whole team. Maybe you got a couple players who are actually pretty good. This defensive lineman, he's pretty good. This running back is good. The kicker is good. Everybody else got to go. So just because you don't have the outcome that you want doesn't mean you got to change everything, but you might have to change a lot. So your job is to do an assessment. Again, these are the parts that are good. These are the parts that you can improve at. These are the parts you need to completely eliminate. The same thing that your boss will say to you. Hey, you're really good at showing up to work on time. You can improve at closing more sales. And you really need to stop this habit of arguing with people during the meetings, right? So there are things you can keep, things to adjust, and things you need to get rid of. And it's the same thing you need to do with your habits. And every day is job review time for your habits. So unlike at your job, where they review your work every quarter or every year or every 6 months or even once a month, you reviewing your habits is every single day. There are no days when you don't review habits. Anytime you're in a circumstance or looking at a situation in your life or in your day that you don't want, ask yourself, what habit has led me to this point right here? I'm getting to work and I'm 10 minutes late to work. What habit led to me being 10 minutes late for work? Because I can't keep being 10 minutes late for work. All right. I am not getting the outcome that I want in the gym. What habits are leading to me not getting the outcome that I want in the gym? Because I can't keep this being like this. So one of the keys to doing an ROI assessment on your habits or a job review of your habits is identifying the outcomes that you don't want. And you got to be honest with yourself in order to do this. And that's a challenge that I found many people. Can you just keep it real with yourself? Can you be honest with yourself about what's working and what's not working, what outcomes you want and what outcomes you don't want? Because if you can't be honest with yourself about these, then that means there's nothing to fix and everything just stays how it is. If you're okay with that, that's fine. But most of the people I talk to, they have at least some area of their life, career, business, etc., that they would like to upgrade, change, renovate, etc. I've yet to meet a person who said everything in life is just perfect and I don't want to change anything, unless they were like an older person, like a retired person who is kind of just on cruise control. But anybody I know who's still out there and active and in the game, nobody's ever told me that. They always have something that they want to fix, change, update, edit, etc. So assuming that you're that person, you got to keep it real with yourself about what you want to adjust. And once you're clear on that, now we can do other things. And I'll take questions at the end, by the way. Let me get through the rest of this point, and then I'll recap, and then I'll take all questions. So What habits are doing what you want them to do, i.e. you have the outcome that you want, and what habits are not doing what you want them to do, i.e. you don't have an outcome that you want. It is that clear. It is a black and white binary. So any aspect of your life where you don't like what you have, you need to address the habits. Any aspect where you do like what you have, you need to address those habits, because the habits from the areas that you like, you can start applying them to the areas that you don't like, because, okay, what am I doing over here where everything is working? Okay, what habits do I have? What structure am I using here? Let's apply that same structure to this area where I don't like what I got. And maybe some of these same things can work over here. Usually they do. Usually they do. So for example, my company Work on Your Game is based on taking the stuff that I know works for athletes to make it in sports. And I stripped out the physical stuff and translated that over to the business world, because what allows a person to be successful, period, applies in any profession. So what makes you successful playing basketball will also make you successful as a salesperson, as an entrepreneur, if you want to run a bake shop, if you want to climb the corporate ladder. The same principles generally work. Now, there are details that are different, but the principles apply across the board. Is there any career in which being disciplined is a bad thing? There isn't one. All right, athletes need to be disciplined. Is there any career in which having confidence is bad? No, everybody wants to have confidence, especially if you need to be front facing to customers and prospects. Is there any aspect of life in which mental toughness is a bad thing? No, you need to be mentally tough, because nothing ever works out exactly as we want it to work out. And there will be setbacks. There will be challenges. You got to be mentally tough enough to deal with them and keep going. Again, that applies in sports. It applies in business. Is there anywhere where taking initiative, meaning not sitting around and waiting or hoping for something to happen, but actually going in, knocking on some doors, ringing some phones, making something happen? Is there anywhere in life where that's a bad idea? No. So again, these things work in sports and they also work in business. The point being that I told you, I took the framework of what works for an athlete and I applied it to business. And this is the reason why I was able to transition the way that I did, even though I was playing a sport and now I'm talking business, because the principles are universal. All right, so the principles of what work and what you do for a living, all of you listening to me right now, those principles can apply to someone who does not do what you do if you can properly deconstruct and break them down. But that's one of my superpowers. I'm not saying everybody has that skill, but I got it. And this is the reason why I am in the position that I'm in. I do what I do because of this. So everybody clear on everything I said here? Let me recap these points. We're talking about how to get more life out of life. If you have a question or comment, put it in the comment section right now. I'm going to address them in 1 second after I recap these points. The definition of life, straight out of the dictionary: the condition that distinguishes animals and plants from inorganic matter, including the capacity for growth, reproduction, functional activity, and continual change preceding death. Most people never read that definition, but I'll suggest all of you just get yourself more familiar with the dictionary when you're using words, and look up what the words actually mean so you understand what you're saying, and you can help clarify to other people when you're talking about stuff, because people tend to play games with definitions these days and it muddies up conversations. Number one, change your default setting. Most of you are on the default setting of slow and later. I'm telling you to relatively speaking, change that default to fast and now. When you're going to do something, do it fast, and instead of doing it later, do it now. Number two, do an ROI assessment. What people, places, things, energies, activities, habits, etc. are actually producing results for you and what is not. 80% of your results coming from 20% of your inputs. Figure out what the 20% is and do more of that. Figure out what the 80% is and do less of that. Very simple, not easy. Very simple, not easy. Again, this applies to a lot of things that you may like doing, but they're not doing anything for you. You got to get rid of them. Number three, job review of your habits. Your habits are your employees. They're your staff. They're your sales force. They work for you. If there's any aspect of your life in which you are unhappy, you need to fire some staff. Is everybody clear on this? If there's any aspect of your life where you are not happy and not satisfied with what you have, somebody needs to get fired. Any of you knows anything about the corporate world, if the board of directors is not happy with how the business is going, what's the first thing they do? They start firing people. The first person they fire is the CEO. Now, I'm not telling you that you get fired, because you can't fire yourself from your own life. That would be something that I probably can't say. TikTok would ban me if I said the word. You know what I'm talking? That's not what I mean. But you do need to fire some of your staff. In a sports team, for example, if the team's not winning, who's the first person that gets fired? They don't fire the players. They fire the coach. So what I'm telling you is that if you have an aspect of your life where things aren't working well, good news is you're the boss, so you can't get fired, but you can fire any employee who you want. And your habits are your employees. So you need to decide which employees need to be fired, because clearly some of your employees are not doing the job that needs to be done. They got to go. And then you got to check yourself, because you hired them in the first place. So if you got a bunch of bum ass people on your staff, you still need to be held accountable because you hired them. Or who hired them? You did. So you still get held accountable even though you won't get fired. That's the only difference. You won't be fired, but you must be held accountable. All that said, so any of you who has a question or comment, go ahead and post it in the comment section. I don't know if I saw a ton of comments coming through, but maybe I missed them. I'm looking through TikTok now, and then I'm going to go over to Instagram. Rel Bando 370. Good morning. Appreciate it. Oh, yeah. WorkOnYourGameUniversity.com. Any of you who would like to have me as your direct coach get access to all of our trainings, all of our courses, all of our best frameworks that I've been talking about here and in other presentations that I do, go to WorkOnYourGameUniversity.com. That's where you can get access to me as a direct coach, get on our live coaching calls, access all of our trainings and courses. We got 40 plus courses in there, 3,000 plus training lessons, all inside the university. That link is in my bio where you're listening to this. Yellow Man Reed, good morning. Good to see you here as usual. I don't have a ton of comments here. I see a lot of joined notifications and likes. Appreciate that. Coach Stanley said, well, Coach Stanley, you came in at the end of the live. I'm talking for 30 minutes here. Topic is how to get more life out of life. I think y'all can see the title. I don't know if y'all can see the title on TikTok. I don't know what it looks like when you're watching. I can only see it from my side. Topic is how to get more life out of life. Let me see what we got over on Instagram. If we got any comments I need to respond. D-Land Ian or Land says, thanks for being an inspiration for me since I was 13. Congratulations and thank you. How old are you now? That gives me a better frame of reference because I know if you're 15 now, it's only been 2 years, but you might be older. JP, training and coaching. Appreciate you. I'm glad you're getting value out of this. Question over on TikTok is how can I fill up my calendar? Give yourself something to do. Take the stuff that you need to do for yourself and put it in the calendar. So even I don't know what type of things you want in the calendar, because actually, if I was seriously answering that question, the first thing I'd do is figure out what you're trying to do. I wouldn't start answering the question. I would start asking you questions. Fill up your calendar with what is the most important question. What are you trying to fill it up with? You trying to fill it up with appointments? You want to have sales calls? Do you want to have lunch dates, dinner dates? Are you trying to go meet are you trying to speed date? Trying to meet a girlfriend or a boyfriend? I don't know. What are you trying to fill up the calendar with? If you just want to have a calendar filled day, you can take all the stuff that you need to do, even the stuff you got to do at home, like folding laundry and washing dishes. You can put that on the calendar if you want. That at least will hold you more accountable to how you're using your time, but you also will have to give yourself limits, because the good thing about a calendar is that it gives you a limitation of time. You can't just take it as long as it takes. Anything that takes as long as it takes is not a good idea. You got to give yourself limits. I found in my experience and in my researching and reading and listening to other people talk about this, that high-level productive people tend to put themselves on time limits to get things done. They do not give themselves unlimited time to get stuff done. They say, I got 30 minutes to write this article, and at the 30 minutes, whatever I got. Not, I'm just going to write it, and if it takes 3 hours, it takes 3 hours. If it takes 2 days, it takes 2 days. No. High-level performing people give themselves time limits with which they get things done. And when that time is up, is up. When it's over, is over. And they hold themselves accountable to that time limit. That's another way you can get more life out of life. That wasn't even on my list, but that's another way to get more life out of life. Stop giving yourself unlimited time to get things done. And again, that connects to what I just talked about. Instead of doing things slow, do them fast. And to do things fast, folks, often you just need to give yourself parameters. You got to give yourself a limit. You want to do things fast, you got to give yourself a limit. So instead of saying, I'm going to go to the gym and for as long as I feel like going to the gym, say I'm going to the gym, I'm going to walk in the gym at 5 o'clock and I got to walk out of the gym at 5:45. Whatever happens in that 45 minutes happens, but that's all the time I got. At the 45 minutes, I must be walking out of the gym. So if you're sitting there bullshitting and looking at your phone and talking to people for 30 of that 45 minutes, then that's the situation. And when you hold yourself accountable to that, you will probably find yourself getting more done in less time, which is what the essence of getting more life out of your life, folks, is just that. You want to get more done in less time because we have a limit. The one limit that we all share is that we're all going to die and we're all going to run out of time at some point, which means the more you can get done in less time, the more life you get to live. Like, so if you're making $100,000 right now a year, wouldn't it be better if you can make $100,000 in half the year? So then that means in the whole year, you make $200,000. All right. So all you're doing is speeding up the outcome. You're not even changing the amount. You're just speeding up the outcome. So instead of taking a year to make 100,000, how about you took 6 months to make 100,000? Or what if you made 100,000 in a month? Now, every month you can make 100,000. That's a whole lot more money. right? So all we're trying to do is speed up the outcomes. That's what the essence of getting more life out of life is, speeding up outcomes. So when I say the 80-20 principle, what does it mean? It means taking 80% of the stuff you're doing is nonsense and doing nothing, get rid of it, and just spend more time doing the stuff that's actually working. What's that going to do? Speed up the result. If I say do an assessment of your habits, look at the ones that are working and do more of those, and then look at the ones that are not working and delete those, what is that going to do? It's going to speed up the result. So the essence of this whole point, essence of this whole theme of what I'm talking about here, this answers the question of who was that to ask that question at the end. That came in at the end, Coach Stanley. Essence of your question is the theme is speeding up outcomes. That's what living more life means. It means doing more stuff before you expire. All right, that's all it means. All right, the one thing that we all can agree on is that all of us will expire one day. And for some of you, that one day might be tomorrow. For some of you, it might be 50, 60, 70 years from now, but we all will expire. I think everybody agrees. Therefore, you want to speed up your outcomes. And this is the reason why people hire personal trainers. It's not because you can't get in shape by yourself, but it might take you 5 years. If you hire a trainer, you'll be in shape in 5 weeks. That's the difference. What's the difference? Speed. All you're doing is increasing the speed of the result. And everybody here will probably, over the course of your lifetime, make $1 million. If you make $50,000 every year for 20 years, that's $1 million. Just do the math. But I think most of you probably don't want to take 20 years and make $1 million. You'd rather make $1 million in a year. So how do we do that? You got to speed up the result. How do you speed up the result? Well, you go get some help from someone who knows how to speed up results. Simple as that. It's the reason why coaching exists. It's the reason why people hire consultants. It's the reason why people go to course conferences and sign up for courses and read books, because you're looking for ways to achieve the things that you know you want to achieve, but you want to do it faster than if you had to do it all by yourself via trial and error. Many of you are living your life through trial and error. The problem is you ain't got enough time to trial through every error. Do you understand? You do not have enough time to go through every trial and make every error. You will die before you figure it out. That's why you get help from people who already have figured it out. This is the reason why people coach. This is the reason why people train. It's the reason why you have physical therapists. It's the reason why athletes have trainers. Why? Because they need to achieve the result now. They don't have time to wait. Notice that every high level person, they got people around them that help them achieve results faster. Y'all notice that? Any high level person, people, they all got a whole bunch of people around them that help them achieve outcomes faster. Y'all notice that? Just think about that. Every athlete has a personal trainer. Every athlete has someone who helps them with their body, like recovery and stuff. Many athletes have people who make meals and stuff for them. Why is that? So that they can focus on the thing that they do best, and everything else still gets done, just not done by them. Because they don't have time to do everything. They want to focus on the main thing, 80-20 principle. You see how all these things work together? If you listen to me enough, you'll notice every single thing that I say, it fits with something else that I said. And that's by design. That's not by luck. You want to be a higher level person, you got to get people and things around you to help you achieve your results faster. It's not just about you doing everything fast, because you are not good at everything. I'm not good at everything. You need to know what you're good at, what you're not good at. Fire yourself from the stuff you suck at and give yourself a raise in the things that you're good at. Good news is you're only good at a few things. Every human is only good at a few things. When I say a few, I mean like 2 or 3. Everything else you need to outsource and get something or someone who's not you on the job, because they're actually good and you are not. And the sooner you come to this realization and accept this, the faster you will achieve results. As long as you keep trying to do everything by yourself and quote unquote at your own pace, then you are running up against the clock, and the clock's going to win, by the way. Nobody's ever beat the clock. The clock meaning death. Nobody's ever beat that clock. You can't name one person who's ever beat that clock. Therefore, your job here, your assignment, based on everything that I've said here today, is look for ways and commit yourself to ways to speeding up your outcomes. That's the key thing here. Speed up your outcomes. How can I achieve this outcome sooner rather than later? That's it. All right, so we got to wrap this one up, folks. Someone said, how can I focus on one career choice? Your question is the answer is in the question. Focus on one career choice. Take out the how can I, and your answer is everything from focus on. So I appreciate that. Trapping junkie. Appreciate that. So I'll do these lives every Monday through Friday, weekdays, starting around 8 o'clock. Sometimes a little bit later, like no later than about 8:30, I'll start these. So the next step for any of you serious about taking your game, whatever your game is, to the next level, or you're just trying to figure out your game, Go to workonyourgameuniversity.com. That link is in my bio on whichever app you are watching me on, or is in the comment wherever you're watching me. Again, that's workonyourgameuniversity.com. I'll see you all tomorrow. Work on your game. Be out here.